Hello, Warriors, and you got to be one in this market, don't you, Mike?
You
So
do. You do.
here we are. Here we are on a Thursday. Another disappointment as far as the CPI came in stronger than expected. It reminds me of, and I was looking for a positive surprise. Reminds me of the saying, Mike, if you're hoping, it's hopeless.
No, no, yeah. Hope is the last thing. When you hope and you're trading, and we're old enough to throw a lot of cliches out there because they mean something. Yeah.
Yeah,
The last thing is hope. I think isn't that on the hope on the scale of capitulation when you're down there? Hope is like in the
yeah,
middle, and then you just give up. Yeah. Hope is.
yeah, yeah. Hope is and denial. And I don't want to stay in denial. And so what's happening in the precious metals is very interesting. They're sharply lower, and I wasn't looking for this kind of downside. And now it looks like GDX could make a new low, and maybe even silver, the physical market, could make a new low. What's interesting is it isn't rebounding with the dollar, which I'm so far possibly correct about putting in a top, that the metals aren't responding to it. The S&Ps tried to rally back a bit after the dollar sold off. Euro didn't make a new low on this move. Yen pushed higher again. Yields made new highs, Mike. I think we traded 405 before we started coming off. And, I like the bonds down here. I know there's no fundamental reason to like them. They don't look much better than the gilts in the UK, but I like them. So, on a day like this, your demeanor is pretty calm. There was a dollar trade from the CPI, so it worked, at least for partial profit so far. I know that you were probably active after this initial swoosh to the downside. I'm wondering where you're seeing actions and what kind of trades you're putting on, and if they're just short-term scalps, or the difference between something you might like, uh, you know, uh, maybe a little longer term at what's beginning to look like some pretty good fire sales.
Yeah, and you know what? It's going to be a lot. I'll tell you right now, a lot of stocks are not rallying the way they should in this market. I mean, the market. Let me go to my charts, if you will. Okay. Here's the chart on the SPYs, if you will, making that candle off the low. They got the gap to close. Yesterday's low, which we're coming to. Yesterday's low is where? Right here. So on the SPYs, we're coming to 356 and change,
Yeah.
which fills the gap. We've already went from 348 to 354, huge move. But you know what? Stocks like Microsoft, for example, that have been in massive declines. Yes, it made a nice move off the bottom, 219 to 255, but it's up 28 cents on the day. So, I mean, let me digress again. The fact that the market was up this morning 3-4 handles before, or the SPYs was up 3-4 handles, the market 30.
Yeah.
And I like that because it got everybody
Bulled up.
Yeah, it got everybody bulled up a little bit. And yesterday they thought that they had it.
Yeah.
I always pontificate. They never ever give you the dream scenario setup, and I thought that was very unlikely to happen. And you know what? I look at things right now; they're really going. And I had stocks early, but I sold them just because I've been scarred. Here's a stock like AMAT you could see right here, and this is a little long term on AMAT. And I thought that all the news was washed out in the semis. It had, AMD already washed out. Micron reported the earnings. So AMAT, here's the chart on AMAT. I didn't put it in the fund, unfortunately, but that has a relatively low RSI. But you know what? I've started buying it. What is this? The blue line, the blue at 72.60. The low
Nice.
was 71.30. My last buy, which was the low, but I'm blowing it out at 74 because I thought now it's 76. A stock like FAS, the only one in the country buying it right here, 49, right here, all around 49. I sold it at 53. It's 52. What else did I?
So this was your kind of opening, Mike. You just
Well,
went
all I'm
with
doing is trying to get out of problems that I had from from previous, and the market's going to
right,
go positive
big
right
gap
now.
down, and you used it as a buying opportunity across the board.
I did.
Even things you were underwater on is what you're telling me.
Well, you know what? This is how I come into every day. If I wasn't long the stock already, would I buy it here? For example,
Yeah.
You have to put out feelers, and the feelers through this precipitous decline get to be, just like another cliche is sometimes your smallest trades turn out to be your biggest losers. So, I nibbled on a little Microsoft, a little Google at 100, then 98, then 96. And you know what? Then those feelers turn out to be positions, if you will. And something's going on rapidly here. And that's what it is. But you listen, it's yet to be determined as the spies make this type of move. Hold on a second. Let me show you my charts or my screen. I don't want to make any egregious moves here and show anything because I don't want people to get in the new share. Here's my screen. All right, that's what I have on so far. So here's the spies. JP Morgan, Citicorp and JP Morgan. JP Morgan has earnings tonight, came in at 103. Now it's 106. Paper like I'm along a stock like Twilo right here. The low is 62.10. Right now it's 63.30. The market had a massive move. I bought a laggard just because I thought they would squeeze it. And here's the chart right here, if you will. Now I need a lot more of a push. As you can see, Twilo, I'm buying at 62.30. I'm buying it all this morning, hoping for a push. Now, once again, I'm willing to take Twilo a little bit if it goes back there because by the way, they already had the layoffs. It's a stock with news. They already had layoffs. The chart doesn't do it justice. We are positive now. Micron, AMAT positive. Oh, it could have been some.
So we're getting a big reversal day on this news, Mike. I still think we need to close back over 3,600 to arrest the decline, but you have to respect the recovery that we're getting in a lot of these markets. And I think it ties in with the dollar coming off, and yields coming off. So, I thought it was going to start from yesterday. Maybe it's starting from today, and yields made new highs without the dollar making a new high. That's a little bit of a split that hasn't happened in a while. So I still believe that if we get the dollar peaking here and yields peaking here, that there still could be a decent rally in risk.
Well, you know what? Look at the semis were the ones that turn. The semis are always the first to turn around. Taiwan Semi had their earnings this morning, was positive. See, it's up. We can see the screen.
Yeah.
Taiwan Semi right now is up $4.
Yeah.
Where is it? Right here, up 4. And I'll go to the chart. Okay, and that led the semis to turn around. AMD positive. AMU was not even negative that much. AMAT, I was the only one like his AMAT. Now I'm upset because I wanted to walk away. And here's AMAT, for example, in the chart again. I'm selling it at 74. Now it's 77, $3 higher. So this is a point here. If you're trying to bottom fish, it's very difficult because you're really never in the meat of the trade. You never make as much back as you do when you're down on it. UAL had earnings today. That was positive all morning before the earnings came out. Before the market, positive before when the futures are up. And that was up. You could have bought that on the dip, stocks like that. The first, let me go to TradeGATEHub in here because I want to make a point here. It's valid. Market is this. And this is the bottom line is there's my screen. And I put this for a reason, 8:45 Thursday, AM Thursday. Now I'm going to show my screen as of 11:15 Thursday. And see, here it is now. So I'll give you a picture. What a
reversal.
I'll give you a picture. Here's the picture. Just when everybody started to capitulate, share the screens 2 hours later. There's the screen. Let me share it. Pictures, QQQ, what time is it? Here it is. So compare those 2 hours later. But this is what I did say here. First on, the first thing they'll do, and this was an hour ago, obviously, the first thing they'll buy are oils and drillers. So let's go right here, share screen. The first thing they do, here's my oils and drillers. Exxon, Chevron, Except, Slob up 1, EOG, Devon. Now let me go to my daily chart. Now another cliche, if I wasn't poisoned by a bunch of all these losers, and they'll become winners, it's just I've got to be patient and coddle them. I got taken out of my own style. You know what I mean? My style was I wanted to be flat with a VIX over 30 because my greatest acumen is day trading. But here's Devon. Devon, for example, opened up just barely down a little bit, straight up on Devon. Oil, Chevron, Texaco. The low today was 156, 163.7. Schlumberger, best of breed. 41.90 to 40, it's a $2 move. You know what I mean? These are moves. This SLB now. Now even not even overbought, breaking out again. ZIM. I was the only one buying at 22. Now it's at 27. What am I going to buy it here? That's why this bottom fishing gets difficult to anybody who's listening. It's difficult. ZIM I like down here. See what the RSI was here? It was 18. ZIM I was buying at 22. It wouldn't go. I was making a half, fighting the market. Now it finally rolled up and it went from 22 to 27 on 10, 20,000 shares. That adds up. So, a lot of things are changing in the market. JP Morgan has earnings tonight. Who else has earnings? My list on Caesar.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah. Now I'm going to try to take some stocks off here. SC is a laggard. I don't know why that's not going. Twilo's still bad. Apple's still down $1. Am I going? Hold on. So, you know what I mean? Maybe this is a chance where they're squeezing the other stocks, but the SPY just went positive. Apple's still down $1. Still got Amazon pinned. It's still, $4 off the low. But once these go positive, then look for the stocks that led to maybe cool off a little bit, because then they're going to really go back into leaders that have been lagging.
Especially if yields are peaking, Mike, they will go back.
No. Listen, it's all up to here. The UUP and the TLT. Here's the chart. Let's look in the chart on the TLT. This is up to you, Coach. I say I'll leave this to professionals. This is the chart on the TLT with volume in the past 3 days. Is it washed out? I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. I wouldn't be short, but I've said that for a few handles. And UUP, let's look at that UUP chart. People will be able to see that we did not make new highs, and we could be rolling over here.
UUP. I'm just selling something. Here's the daily on UUP.
Daily will show it better.
Right here. There's the UUP. And you know what? Oh, that looks nice. That's what they call ahead. That's looking forward. That's a head and shoulders for
That's
them,
a failing rally. Okay.
So you know what?
Yeah.
Halliburton.
The dollar's a key. I've been pounding the table about the dollar's a key.
There's our chart on Halliburton now, right, guys? Best of breed, if you will.
Yeah.
What's great news, Gina? All right, I got to get. You know what? So I got to get rolling here. Everybody's got to, tune in for TGH a little later.
Mike, I mean, great trading buying the dip this morning. Most people were, in a fetal position that were hoping for it. You go, wow, what an opportunity. The difference between a pro and an amateur is they're always looking for the opportunity, whether it's a higher market or lower market. What's the market offering me now? And great call. So I did it with the dollar, not as much of a payday on the CPI, but we did. We faded the news and made money today, Mike.
Yeah, we did.
So, people buy headlines today, sell newspapers tomorrow, buddy.
Well, and no, what we do is we sell the shovels.
Yeah.
At TradeView. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a bunch of great miners, no pun intended, but we like to sell shovels because it's really selling the shovels where you make the meat of the trade, not the ones trying to dig for gold.
Okay, buddy. Well, thanks for showing us how to be, in case we ever have to go back and do manual labor.
Look at applied materials.
I hope that's not in my future, because I'll get fired the first day.
71 to 78, amen.
Yeah, look at this. All right. Well, look, you know what? What did we talk about? You can't expect perfection at the crap table. You know how many people sold it in the hole down there, Mike? And wishes they would have been there for a $5 scalp in AMAT.
Roku. Now I'm in this thing. Now I'm buying Roku all morning, you can see.
Let me ask you, let's close it with this. We know one day does not a trend make.
What's that?
What we know one day does not a trend make. Say we end up sticking this reversal. What will convince you that this is more important than a one-day move?
What will convince me that's more volume, closing at the high, the VIX being below 30, the dollar continuing that head and shoulder UUP. Look at the market. There's just something really major just happening. Look at this. That spike up. I got to run. All right, go.
All right, thank you.
You have to watch the
Mike.
dollar for head and shoulders. Wow.
Nice trade. Nice trading today, Mike.
Not off yet. Look at this. Roku.
Yeah.
Yeah, something happened here. The market just real. The VIX.
Well, the dollar's getting even weaker, and yields are dropping. That's what's going on. It peaked on the CPI. Inflation's probably peaking on a bad CPI number. Okay.
Okay, guys, thanks for
They're
tuning in.
not
Have
going
a
to
good
ring a
day.
bell. They never ring a bell, Mike.
UAL, they're really flying. Look at this.
What a big day. What a good day to
360.
be a